Hello and welcome, everybody. It is Thursday, and this is Teany, your purpose coach. And today, well, and every Thursday and sometimes Tuesdays, if there's issues, you get your weekly dose of high vibe, forward thinking, and revolutionary content that encourages you to discover the passions that lead you to your purpose. And today, we have Emily Tamayo here. Say hi, Emily.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So glad you made it. Okay, let's put our names. Awesome. So let me just double check on Facebook to make sure we're live. Awesome. Cool. As soon as I finish this, we'll be live.
Awesome. And sorry about the technology problems last time.
No worries at all. All good
I
things.
love talking about this stuff. Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Ironically, we were just talking and Emily had a power outage, right? Which is
Yes,
very rare.
exactly. Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes that reason is just to make us stronger, but I'm in a great place tonight with so much to talk about. So maybe that can be the reason.
Yes. It's like it's so much power, so much energy in this interview that
Exactly. Lightning and all of it. Exactly. And I love talking about energy. So wonderful.
awesome. Well, I know that you have a lot of amazing things going on, so let's jump into it. Hi,
Great.
everybody. Hey, Sheena. Feel free to ask questions as we start our chat. And before we begin, I wanted to give you a quick synopsis of who Emily is. So, Emily Tamayo Maher is an author coach and a mentor. Did you hear that?
No.
Okay, there's a lot of feedback going on. Okay, telling you, lots of
Yeah,
vibes going on here.
they're crazy vibes.
Okay, so she's an author, coach, and a mentor who helps entrepreneurs find their voice, publish their books, and make the difference they're meant to make. And I can talk all about that in a minute. We'll get into that. A client once called her a therapist for the imagination. I just love that. That captures it best. Her mission is to help aspiring writers turn their stories into a manuscript and captures the significance of their dreams. She's an award-winning writer of both fiction and nonfiction and lives in Bogotá, Colombia, with her husband Mauricio and son Martin.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my life. That's my life in a nutshell. Gorgeous pronunciation, by the way.
Oh,
Of
gracias.
course.
So I'm so happy to have you. And for those of you who don't know, she is an author coach. And I think I found you through one of the multiple groups that I'm part of, and I was just drawn to you. And I'm so
We
glad.
chatted forever. Uh-huh.
Right. And I'm so glad because, well, first of all, we have a lot of things in common. We're both coaches, but we're also interested in writing and we're both interested in books. And I happened to be writing a book when I found you. And so you've become my writing coach at this point.
I
And
know.
I love it.
It's so much fun. It's so creative. And I'm so excited for this book to come out into the world because it really gives the step-by-step on how to live your passion.
Yes. And that's why we're here today, because I want to hear about your passion and how you got all involved in this writing business. And first of all, I have to say that she and I resonate on so many levels, and you'll understand why in a minute because we're going to get into her story. So first, let's start with your journey. Like, how did you get started as a writer? And maybe you can give a little backstory of how that had transpired.
It's funny because I've written forever. I've wanted to be a writer. I always have been a writer since I was 9 years old. That was my dream. And so I suppose I went to the University of Iowa. I studied writing, but life takes you this way and that. And so I had a lot of different jobs in my 20s and into my 30s. I was a teacher for 7 years. I traveled the world a lot. And so it's interesting because in search of your passion, the world can pull you around quite a bit, everything from teaching to retail management to working at the UN, just a lot of different things. And so I remember before I took my business full time to be an author coach full time, even I was evaluating a lot of different ideas. I'm an expatriate, and so I was thinking of doing expatriate coaching. I was thinking about doing coaching for teachers, but by stepping into it and really taking action and experimenting, that's when it really brought me back home to writing. And oh my goodness, it's been wonderful ever since. I just had my 2-year anniversary of launching my business, and it just expands and expands. And so I think one thing that's important that you're such a great guide on is that it does take experimentation. But I feel that in my life, when I found it. And so my dreams just get bigger. I go with it further, and I'm really with the flow on the thing that I feel I was meant to develop.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that, like, it was a journey, like you found different things, and we're going to get into signs and all of that in a minute, because I want to know how you were able to discern what was the right thing for you and what wasn't. But first, I want to get into pivot points, because everybody has sort of like that final push that's like, you know what, that's it. This is it. I want to go down this path. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. What were the pivot points that kind of guided you in this direction?
So there are so many pivot points in life. I mean, having grown up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and ended up in Bogotá, Colombia, obviously I've had a lot of different turns on the trail. But I guess I want to talk about the pivot point that led me to create a business out of my passion, because I was working as a teacher, and I got pregnant with my son, and he was 4 months old when I realized my husband and I had been on that journey for a long time. We had wanted a child for a long time. Finally, we had that child, and
gorgeous baby, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I love him. But he was really the inspiration. It's so funny. Sometimes I think we project the love that we should have for ourselves onto our children or onto someone else. Because, for instance, for myself, I was working as a teacher. I was working long hours. It wasn't a school that I was completely aligned with, but, I was making a living and I was doing it. And then all of a sudden, after he was born, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to provide the life I really wanted for him if I stayed in the career I was in. For him to have an education at the college I would like him to go to, and all the different things I wanted for him in life, it just wasn't happening. So he was a major pivot point. I remember I had this nightmare where I felt like I was stuck in a jail and I couldn't accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish for him. And so it was that passion, that my passion for him, that helped me to unlock my passion for myself. And so that's when I started on this journey of looking at different things that I might be able to specialize in. I started a blog, and I was blogging about everything under the sun. And it was just taking those actions that brought me to the thing that that ultimately became a successful business. But I think that's funny. The pivot point for me was having my son, looking at life a little deeper, having just a sequence of nightmares. They were those nightmares that you kind of feel in your gut. You just wake up shaking because they're so real. And that kind of woke me up. Ironically, nightmares woke me up to pursuing life at a deeper level. And so I think that's one of the central pivot points is the job I was working before. It just wasn't enough anymore. I was opened to a depth, kind of out of love for my son, to pursue something that would make my life feel fuller, more satisfying, and ultimately get me to the places that I wanted to be.
Absolutely. I mean, he was basically a catalyst.
Exactly. Yeah. A catalyst of kind of emotion, I think.
Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes when people appear in our lives, in this case, your son, it could have been your husband, it could have been, anyone really dear, or maybe even just a struggle that you engage with someone else, some kind of relationship. Sometimes that relationship sparks something, right? It's like, my situation is not okay anymore because now I have to think about somebody else.
Exactly.
That person. Yeah.
And actually, that's really central to all the stories that we have to tell. You know, I've been through different struggles in my life that have become central to helping motivate other people to get beyond the things that are holding them back. And they really become the depth of our message. And so, for instance, one of the things I like to say that through stories, the entire spectrum of human experience has value and meaning. And so that's what I love about the work we do in coaching and the work we do in writing, is that we really bring meaning to these things that seemed so difficult at the time. But then by making connections and communicating them to other people, they provide hope, they provide depth, and they allow us to have the vulnerability that ends up making us more flexible and stronger.
Yeah. And I think it's so amazing because if I tell you, Emily, don't do that, trust me, you're not going to do it, right? No.
You
First of all,
have
you're
to
still gonna
learn it
do
the hard way.
But if
Yeah.
I tell you a whole story about it and how it affected me and the emotional turmoil that I went through, then you're probably more likely to listen to me.
Exactly, because then I understand. Then I have an emotional experience of it myself. And that's how stories connect us.
Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. So I love your story, your pivot points, because I feel like, first of all, I love teachers. So hard out for
Yes.
teachers. My mom was a teacher.
Thank
You were
you.
a teacher. So I'm a big advocate. Anyway, we are teachers because once
Yeah,
you
we're both teachers.
yeah, you're just a different kind of teacher in a different medium, right? That's really what it is. So let's talk about what personal signs that you had, because I'm fascinated by, when people kind of see these synchronicities and things happen in their lives where sometimes we just ignore them. And then sometimes we're like, oh my God, nothing could have happened in this set way and in this way to me, right? It appeared at this exact time that I needed to appear. So what were some of the signs that you witnessed as you were experiencing all this stuff?
And this is another great thing because to kind of demonstrate how struggle can bring more depth to your passion and depth to your journey. Because I would say one of the biggest struggles that I was having that listening to those signs really helped me out of was just the fact that I was working 10, 12-hour days. Teachers, I sometimes say teachers work bankers hours. We just don't get paid like bankers because we teach all day long and then we go home and we're correcting. And so in a certain sense, I thought, who am I to follow my passion? How am I possibly going to start a business when I have a son, when I have this job that takes up so much time? And I really got some guidance that helped me out. And so, for instance, one thing that I do when I'm helping people write their books is now I do energy work. So that's things like meditation, prayer. I work with the chakras, yoga, different things like that. And I'll tell you the truth, I didn't even know about it when I was a teacher. And it was actually by going deeper into my spirituality that synchronicities came together and led me out. And so, for instance, one funny thing, there was a time when I was still working my day job. I had this dream of a business, but it was still in the design stage. I was putting together the website, putting together the business plan. And I remember they were breaking down a bridge between the hours of 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. at night. So I wasn't sleeping. They turned off the hot water in my apartment. So I was like stressed like crazy. And there was a lot of stress at work. And so my hours were taken up. There was all this stress going on in my environment. And I think the question I was asking the universe was, why, Lord? Why? Why are you doing all this to me? And so
why here? Why now?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is right when I'm trying to launch the business. And because that, I mean, now that I've been through times like that, that just instilled my determination in it, and it made me want it all the more. The fact that I couldn't give it up really was a sign to me. But there were funny other signs. I just began to learn about energy work at this time. And so I was meditating very deeply for maybe 30 minutes every morning and just keeping my eyes and ears open for guidance. And so one day I went to school and I was doing a PowerPoint, and the slides were numbered, and suddenly the kids started laughing, and they're like, Emily, are you losing your mind? And I'm like, well, possibly, you know, they're breaking down this bridge at night, so it could happen. And they pointed out that the numbers on the slides were 1, 2, 4, 3. And so we had a good laugh. I went on to the next class. And then in the next class, I had 4 items we were going to discuss that day. And once again, I numbered 1, 2, 4, 3. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I've got to get it together. And so then I got home that night. And this is a time when I was working on my manuscript for my book. And so I'm going to grab the power cord here. I was working on the manuscript for the book, and the numbers for the chapters were 1, 2, 4, 3. And I'm like, okay, this is Word. This couldn't possibly be me just being tired. So, oh my goodness.
It was like a wake-up call, symbols all over.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm like, what could this possibly mean? So I looked it up on the internet. My goodness, excuse me one moment while I fix this technical difficulty.
No worries. I love talking about symbols. I'll talk to the audience. Keep doing what you're doing. I love talking about symbols because, well, you read it in my book, but I love talking about how everybody has their way. Like for her, it turned out to be numbers. For me, whenever I talk to people and they're going to potentially come on my show, if they start telling me their stories, I literally feel goosebumps all over my arms. And it's crazy. It's like, oh, they're telling a story that people need to hear. I'm getting goosebumps of it because it needs to be told. So that's my personal side. So go ahead.
And yeah, this is the goosebumps part of the story. So it was funny. I looked up in Google, what is 1, 2, 4, 3? And it said that is the angel number for a transition in a career. And it was just kind of that sign that I needed to go forward. And for me as a teacher, the reason I was working as a teacher was to provide an education for my son. That was the scariest thing. My son was both my catalyst and my biggest obstacle because I was so afraid by going full-time with my business, would I be able to provide for him? And so first I got that sign of that repeated number 1, 2, 4, 3. And then I noticed certain clients I had that gave me great testimonials. They would send me an email at 12:43. So there was that number again. And the number would just kind of guide me towards different decisions I needed to make for a period of time. But the big thing for me was leaving my job. That was practically an impossibility with all these signs, and there are different signs came at different places. I think what you're talking about with goosebumps at the end of the day, just the way you feel in your body is the biggest sign. I was so frightened to leave my job. I had developed my business. I had several clients. I was actually making as much money on the business as I was in my job as a teacher when I left, but I was still so scared to leave because private school education is so expensive here. And I remember I think the next sign that I got to leave my job is my son was just turning 4. So he was going to have to start school, and I needed to make this decision. And on the final days of the school year, I started getting very sick, and teachers never take days off because there's just too much work for everybody, and you work through it. Well, a friend of mine shook me by the shoulders and she said, Emily, you're going crazy. Take the day off. I got a doctor to come to my house. He gave me the sick leave that I needed. I went straight to another school where my son could possibly attend. And they had 3 spots left for kids. And when I got to that school, I just felt my heart open. I knew that this is the place where he was supposed to go. And that was just a part of the transition that helped me so much because the school where I was teaching was very standardized. It was very elite. It was the burden of homework started at the age of 4. And honestly, when I took him there, he would lock himself in a closet. He didn't seem to like it there. So the switch of the schools was another thing where I was just looking for a sign. And now he's been going there for almost a year. He loves it. I can't believe how happy he is. And so it was an important transition in my life. And And it worked out, but it's because I kept my mind and heart and eyes and ears open to those signs.
Yeah, first of all, that was epic because you got really sick. You had to take a day off. This interview happened to happen. You know, you end up at the school and you just get all the feels.
Yes, exactly. It's like my guardian angel was literally kicking my butt to leave the school and it's the way my life works now. Exactly. And it was kind of epic because he would be starting a school. I would have gotten roped into another school year. And so, yeah, if you're open to the help, it'll push you. It'll be great.
Well, I start talking about it now because I think you and I have talked about it. A lot of business people are starting to talk a lot about that kind of, connection to an otherworldly feeling. You know, it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I'm seeing numbers. It could be as simple as, God, I feel something in my stomach, like I shouldn't go. Or I feel something in my heart, like, wow, that feels really right. So it doesn't have to be as obvious as like numbers. You have to follow them and things like that. It could be really anything that resonates with you, like whatever is your personal sign that you connect with, right? For you and me, I see numbers as well. I see synchronistic ones and things like that all the time. And that kind of shows me like I'm on the road, I'm on the right track. So
it gives you that little boost. Yeah. And learning the way your intuition works by experimenting and experiencing is the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to hear from the audience too. If you guys have any personal signs that you use or even situations that you've experienced that kind of led you to a specific path, please feel, type below. Okay. So I want to talk about, the people that have appeared in your life. Obviously, your son was an extremely important person in your life, right? So who inspired you, aside from your son, along your way? Because we all have mentors that sort of help us move forward. So who was that for you?
Yeah, and it's a really important question because I feel like, even in education, we're taught to do the practical thing. We're taught to fit in and conform, etc. And so I think that we have to look outside our normal circles sometimes to find the people who are following their own path. I mean, now we have more groups like your group. We have places where we can find these examples. But when I was growing up, becoming a writer in Cedar Rapids, Iowa was unheard of. And so I was thinking back to the earliest mentor I had was an aunt. She was really interested in social justice work and she followed her passion. She got a master's in advanced education and she became the leader of the international students at a college. And so she teaches classes on diversity and acceptance and all those different things. And it was that moment, just being able to have this one person who had an unconventional career and followed her passion no matter what, I started to look to her. And I know that in times when my family was having a hard time or there was a lot of fighting, I would go to my aunt as kind of an escape to any drama that would be in my life. And so if you can find just one person, it can be a teacher, it can be a relative, but I think those influences that are close to us that we know, they become the ultimate the ultimate people we go to when we're insecure about ourselves. And it's so funny because as I've done this business in the last year, she is the one who came back to me again and again, whereas most people in my life would say, why are you going to be a writer? You're never going to make any money on that. All these things we have pushing us down. The thing I'll never forget when I launched this business and really went for it and published books, etc. She said, I always knew you were going to write a book. I always knew you were going to write a book. And I thought that was so beautiful. I couldn't believe it. And so look in your life. Where is that angel? Maybe it's not the person's closest to you, but look to those people in your environment who can help you and support you, who you can look to along the way. Because actually, we've talked about this too. Your family places a lot of expectations on you, and sometimes you accidentally become the person they wanted you to be. That's probably why I became a teacher. But if you look out a little bit more and just step outside those really massive influences, you can find somebody who's an example.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously you have the signs for that too, right? Like,
Mhm.
yes, this person is giving me this advice. Is that right for me? Right. And I love
Exactly.
that your aunt was that person for you, because it's kind of funny that you said that later on, she's like, I knew you were going to write a book. It would have been nice to know that sooner, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But I almost feel like back at that time, you weren't allowed to say that. Like it's
No.
not sensible enough. You're supposed to do, the roofing and the teaching and just like those like practical jobs,
And
conventional
sometimes you have to just figure it out on your own,
jobs.
right?
Hmm.
But as long as you have someone to support you through that process, and she obviously was that person for you, you have someone like in your back pocket that's like, I know my aunt would be okay with this.
Exactly. And how crazy is it to, have a career teaching about diversity? I mean, that's pretty outside of the box, but so many people do it just through that determination, following their passion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving forward, we can't always say that everything is roses, right? What have you experienced, like personal drawbacks, blocks, or people who actually said no, like this isn't something you should be doing? Let's try to slow you down, kind of thing, but you kept on moving.
I suppose, and I think it's really fun to talk about this transition from having a day job, having a conventional job where you have a steady paycheck, into becoming a business owner. And so I would say, as a business owner, of course, scary days and anxiety come up. And so it's really a lot about managing mindset. But at the same time, I think a funny thing happened as I was leaving. I remember, as a teacher, um, people, as I was leaving, they were questioning my decision too. And of course, if anybody was questioning her decision, it was me. And so those voices were really echoing, and they were thinking, and they were just asking me questions like, well, what are you going to do if there are no clients? What are you going to do if everything falls through? And they would often be thinking of the worst case scenario. And I realized suddenly that, you have to think that way in order to stay in a certain situation. And so the fact is that getting that regular paycheck, of course, is a comfort. It's nice. But, already after being 2 years in business, it's fun and it's expansive because I'm reaching more people. I'm teaching in a more natural way than I ever have, and I'm making more money than I ever did. And so it's a trade-off. There are always going to be those voices that say, but what if it doesn't work? Which is a question we ask ourselves all the time. But if that question, what if it doesn't work, keeps you in a place where you don't belong, because of course, there are many people who are extremely talented teachers. When I think back to these people who asked me those questions, I'll be honest, they were probably more talented teachers than I were too. And so they fit into that environment better. But I think at the same time, if you're always working on the worst, looking at the worst case scenario, what if it doesn't work? Then you never give yourself the chance to explore the best case scenario where you feel more passionate, where you feel natural at what you're doing, and it can ultimately be more lucrative if you're really working with your strengths.
Right, right. And I have seen people who go out there and experience things, and they're like, I'm just going to try it. And sometimes they fail. Actually, I'm going to have someone on my show very soon who tried to launch a product and it failed. But that doesn't mean you stop trying. You got to still keep going no matter what, because, right, it's like we were talking about this once. Kids, you give them two options and they're like, I don't know which one to pick. And then you give it to them. You say, okay, take this one. They say, oh, no, I don't want that one. Then you know what the right choice is, right? So that's how
Absolutely.
life works, right? You have to go for it. And if you go and try and it doesn't sit right, then maybe go back to the other one, right?
And yes, and I don't mean to kind of paint this picture like it's easy. I'm in different masterminds and I work with different people all the time, and we have great seasons and we have down seasons. I mean, following your passion, it's like so many things. It can scare you very deeply, and you just have to go to that steady place, that place you trust, and get yourself anchored and just keep going. And so I experimented with a lot of different things and worked the business while working my job for quite a while. And so yes, it doesn't just roll because you want it to roll. It rolls because you keep going back to it, you keep nurturing it, and you keep trying different things when the first thing doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of people who would say, and you met people like this, you just have to burn the boats. Just do it. Just go for it. But that's not always the most feasible path. Like, I had a client who said that, like, I just want to quit my job. And I'm like, well, unless you have like a mint sitting in your bank, maybe don't do that just yet.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
And I would have burned my boats probably right away if I was younger and I didn't have a family. But yes, my decisions were all mediated by the fact that I was the breadwinner for my family and I really needed to take care of everybody. And so, yes, this wasn't one day to the next. Like I said, I had kind of matched my salary in my business, and I was working crazy hours at that time. I always kind of do crazy hours, but I had matched the salary in my business when I left. And so I had quite a bit of momentum behind me when I took it full time.
That's good. So what you were saying is that you always go back to your heart, to your center.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what people need to understand, that it's not always going to be easy. But if you come from a place of, okay, well, this is my purpose and this is the reason why I'm doing this. This is driving me. This is what I love. This is my passion. Then that helps fuel and really just take you through any terrible situations, down times, good times, bad times, all that stuff, right?
And something I'd love to add to that is that I get, especially last year, 2018, I would have terrible anxiety attacks where I doubted everything, where I thought it was the end. And one thing I think is true is that your ability to perform expands with your self-care. So for instance, looking at self-care in the way that I calm my anxiety by using my spiritual practice, by using tapping, by using mindset, by using oils or teas or whatever I have at my disposal to make me stronger, then I can spend more time in my heart center, roll with the punches, and then that experience reestablishes the fact that, okay, day after day, week after week, month after month, we're still sailing, we're still out here. And that also helps you develop strength in your heart by having those days, because you're not going to be singing and throwing daisies every single day. And so when you can find those ways to bring you back to your heart center when you're not, then that just ramps up your progress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that actually brings me to the next question, which was, how do you keep mastering it? And I love how you beautifully segued into how you do self-care, because that's extremely important. If you don't maintain your state, then your state gets you.
Absolutely. And I will say, one of my secrets, I suppose, I always have ongoing education. So I'm not figuring this out by myself. I have coaches. I hire different people to help me as well. But one thing, I have a regular practice. I get up crazy early in the morning when my son and my husband are still asleep. And I do my meditation. I go back to my big plan and my vision. And really, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be specific meditation or anything like that. It's just what's going to put me in my best state. And I take an hour for myself every single morning before the business day even begins. And I just have a feeling of spaciousness and a feeling of connection and a plan for the day. And so I start out every single day like that with my, people call it the morning routine, but I do think that's essential because that's where everything grows. And actually, when I was still working, when I was working a job and the business, that's where that habit of getting up really early came, because I knew that as a teacher, nobody was going to give me an hour. I had to find that hour. I had to hunt it down and claim it. And so that's how I started, by finding those early morning hours to develop this business. And now that I'm working full time in the business, it becomes my time for myself to have my mindset.
Yeah. I love Marie Forleo talks about this. She talks about them as non-negotiables, right?
Yeah,
For
that's my
you, it's that one
non-negotiable.
hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
some people, it might just be 30 minutes of meditation. Tony Robbins says everyone has at least 10 minutes. If you don't have 10 minutes, then you don't have life. Right? So
Exactly.
whatever version of that it is for you, it's crucial because you have to fill yourself. You have to fill your cup. Otherwise, you know, people are going to keep taking from you and you're going to feel empty.
And I think and if you really want this, you have to claim it, because we all know that our days will be filled up in an instant by everybody else. So you've really got to take control and claim the time for yourself.
Yeah. And I guess it's important to know that you are a mom. So for those of you who are moms out there, I'm a mom as well. You know, when I was in massage school, I was in school, working by day and massage at night. You know, like you just have to figure it out. Whatever schedule that's for you, you wake, you know, you go to sleep super duper early. You wake up
Yes.
super early to have that time for yourself. And then you also make time for work, business, you know, your husband and your son. So there's time for everything. We all get the same 24 hours, whether you run 17 businesses or whether you run one and have a full family, right?
Yeah, and I again claiming that too. So the fact that I'm running a business takes a lot of time now, and so I really make everything count. So for instance, last year I remember I gave my son swimming lessons, and so I made the hours I had with him count. And so it's kind of like you can have a lot of different things you want to do in a disorganized way. And if you ask yourself the question, what will make this time really meaningful, and do the thing that's just most important. Now it's, reading to him every night before he falls asleep, things like that. Just make it count. Don't let the time just kind of fritter away. Make it count. And then you'll feel more spacious with your time and you'll feel more fulfilled.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you do this as well, but when you transition from, let's say, you've been working with a client to working with your family, it's kind of good to have a gap, a little gap, like 5-10 minutes in between to sort of, disconnect and release what you just did, and then like reconnect in a different way with the next thing that you're going to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So now that you've been mastering this as a writing coach, what do you think are some major beliefs that people have about moving forward? And I want you to speak to it personally from experience as a business owner, but also even people who want to write these stories. Maybe it's their story, right? How do they get past their beliefs, and what beliefs have you even noticed that they have that prevent them from moving forward?
I think that one thing that comes up a lot with people pursuing is that first, the question, I don't have the time. And so that's kind of why I really wanted to hit on that a lot, is just claim the time. And then there's that aspect of courage. And that's, I think, what's hidden by, the time or the money or whatever that other thing that's happening that's getting in your way. And so what I think people kind of back down on their courage in different ways. They might be doing it by dabbling, which is so important in the beginning. Dabbling is like experimenting with different types of things is important in the beginning. But then once you start to get with a momentum with something, you need to make a decision and stick to that decision and see it all the way through. Put all your courage and power behind it. Because if you're going at it kind of halfway, if you're continually trying and not just doing it, going for it, acting, falling off the horse, getting back on and doing it with a lot of momentum, with massive action, then nothing ever really changes. It's not enough to really push you over the edge and take you to that next level. So I would say, if it's your passion and your purpose, don't let anything get in the way. Write it like it's some crazy love affair where you're just going to try to go and find it in every spare moment, where you're going to read all you can, research all you can, and go for it 100%. Don't hide behind any kind of excuse, because when you really want to make something happen, you can make it happen.
Absolutely. So from a book perspective, what have you found that people who are writing struggle with, even while they're in the middle of writing their book?
The inner critic. That's probably the third. So I think we all have the struggles. Like we have doubt, we have the inner critic, and then we say, well, we blame something like time or money or something else. But I would say the inner critic. And I guess the quick guidance I have on that is that your inner critic, ironically, is your ego. Your ego sounds like it's something that would make you arrogant, but our ego wants to keep us safe. And so it wants to tear us down from doing anything new or anything we haven't done before. And so with writing, if you have a writing project, chances are that once you start writing, your ego is going to get scared. Your ego is going to come up and they're going to say, no, this will never work. Who are you to write this? You can't even put a paragraph. They'll come up. I listen to them all the time. The ego will come up with all sorts of weird excuses about why you shouldn't be doing this. And the fact is that when you first start putting pen to paper, you're really testing out your voice, and your voice might not come with its full strength right away, but it's a habit. People say, I need to find my voice, but your voice is there. It's inside of you. And it's just the habit of choosing to go back again and again, choosing that voice over the critic that gets you the rest of the way. And so if there's something inside you that's longing to be expressed, that feels a little burned out in a conventional job or a conventional place you are now, just make that small habit of returning to your passion, returning to your writing 3 times a week. And it's by making a habit out of courage that I think you create the momentum, the massive action that takes you the rest of the way.
Absolutely. I love that. So I also had a moment where I was like, oh my God, I have to write. Why am I not writing?
Absolutely.
This happened a couple of times. And I have to say that you also have to put yourself in the right state of mind. Because, for example, if you're writing, I think you mentioned this, if you're writing and you're not the right state of mind, then you're probably not going to produce something that you want to publish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're in the right state, let's say, you listen to a really good jam, or, maybe you had a great meal and now you're satisfied. And so, or maybe you had a glass of wine, whatever that is for you, right? Whatever you need to allow that creativity and that feeling of goodness to come through, wait for that to happen, or at least go out there and cause it to happen and put yourself in a good state of mind before you write, because then that'll help that inspiration and it'll come out of you a lot easier. That's what I found.
Absolutely. And that also becomes habitual because, for instance, you're giving advice from your experience because you have been writing, woman, every single week. You have been sending me stuff like crazy. And so, yeah, exactly. Inspiration also can become habitual. And so those things that put you in the right place. So doing them on a regular basis is what makes a manuscript.
It's absolutely true. And it has to do with your brain too, right? Because once you set that pattern in your brain, it's like a recording. Your brain records it, and now it can always go back to that moment of, okay, like I'm in writing mode now. Let me get myself ready. Let's go out there.
Absolutely, exactly. It becomes familiar, and it starts to replace that habit you may have had of always putting yourself down and holding yourself back. You're changing your neural networks. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. And even energetically, right? We can say that we're shifting our energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the same. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All right. So here's a personal question.
Go for it.
When shit hits the fan, Emily,
oh my
what do you
God.
do to keep moving? Emily, I can't write. I can't do this. I can't do that. What happens, Emily?
Take a break. This is something I have learned the hard way because I'm a pusher. I am a worker. I go at things with everything. And so just with experience, noticing that when the shit hits the fan, take care of yourself first. Just step away from the project. Do not make any phone calls. Do not talk to anybody. Pull yourself back together and just get into the habit of noticing that, yeah, the shit hits the fan all the time. And you're still alive. You're still going. And that just builds confidence to know you can handle it. And so I think the first step is when things go bad, take a break, compose yourself, and get yourself back into that place where you have the confidence to handle it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay, so before I get into the next question, let me just put up your name. If you guys have any questions for Emily, and of course we can answer questions later on as well after this interview, but I would love for you to ask the questions and see, what are you working on? What projects are you working on? Do you have any questions from a writing perspective? This is your opportunity. Ask away. All right. So what do you recommend for people now moving forward? How do they get started, and how do they then sort of connect with someone like you? Like, should they have been writing already? Should, they just come to you with an idea? How do you work with people in your business?
So there are a couple different things. Absolutely. Just come to me with an idea. One of my favorite things to do is to sit down with someone and then just start to sketch out a journey or an outline for an idea. So that's the great thing about coaching. So many people think that they have to write their book by themselves. And the fact is, nobody has ever written a book by themselves. You look at all of the famous authors that we so admire, they were part of writing groups in Paris, or they were part of the Iowa Writers Workshop, or so many different places. So don't feel like you have to do it alone. Editors used to take on the role of helping people develop a book, but that's not really true anymore. And so that's what I find really exciting about being a writing coach, is that I can help nurture the content and get everything going, when before it was just this idea that somebody didn't know how to give legs or give script to. And then something really fun is, in social media, everybody is constantly writing, constantly putting out so much content. And so just, in my audience and in my circles, I noticed, being that time is often the biggest thing that gets in the way of producing a book, I've started creating a program where you use the content that you're constantly putting out for social media, the blogs, the captions in Instagram, the different content we put out for Facebook, and we can synchronize it so it's developing the manuscript for the book. So that's something I'm so excited about working with, because really, social media has made writers of everybody. And so now it's just honing that craft and streamlining what you're already doing to be able to put the book together. I think that's so much fun.
Absolutely. And thank you, because I've actually started to do that as well. Putting together a content plan even before you launch your book is so important, because you want to be ready so that, you can put out precursors to what's coming, right?
And everybody be watching what Teany's putting out, because this is what the book is going to be. It's little pieces, little previews of the movement she's putting together.
I'm prepared. Okay, so how can people connect with you? How can they reach you on social media, email? How can they reach out to you if they want assistance on writing a book, a manuscript, or whatever they're writing and working on?
I think first and foremost, because we're in a Facebook group, if you're interested in writing a book, come on over to the free Facebook group, because it's a party in there. We have so many resources, so many things we're doing, and people are really supportive and holding each other accountable. So I think that's first and foremost the way to get started and get the juices flowing. And then another fun thing is I just created a free course. It's 3 videos with worksheets to just kind of kickstart your book idea. So if you're not ready to jump on a call or get a one-on-one coach, go ahead and you'll find the links in the Facebook group, in the intro to the Facebook group. But I'd love to put the links to be able to get that free course where you can find the inspiration to your book. You can start to integrate finding the time, and then finally getting over the inner critic. Those are the 3 things that the small course, the mini course, puts together, and you can have access right away.
Yep. So the Writer's Block is the name of your group.
Yes.
Put it up there. And then you guys can also reach out to her personally to get the writing course. And what's your website?
My website, www.meaningmethodcom. So that's the whole idea started with the idea that our stories, the entire spectrum of human experience, has meaning. And so it's called Meaning Method, and that's the website.
I love it. And that's actually how I connected even deeper with you, because as we were talking, purpose, the whole thing about purpose
is the meaning. It's all coming to the center. Exactly.
So you and I resonate on that deep level, but doing different things, which was
yes.
Yeah. So reach out to her on meaningmethodcom, and also find the writer's block where you can find her. And I'll be there as well, answering comments and posting stuff as well.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So do you have any final thoughts, anything else to ask or say to anyone that's out there about what you do and how they can move forward in their life with their
Just trust your imagination, trust your inspiration, trust your intuition. If you have in your heart that there's something you think you need to write, the whole world sometimes tears it down, and you really have to have that confidence and courage in yourself, and then connect to the environment that will nurture it and support it. And so there are so many people that come to me with an idea for a book, and I don't know if I can do this. Who am I to be a writer? And the fact is that this inspiration mixed with your experience, you're the only person who can bring that to life. So go for it. We really need your voice. More people following their purpose and expressing themselves is what's changing the world right now. So go for it.
Absolutely. It's what makes the world amazing. If you speak from your voice. Whether
I am so much happier now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. I love it. I love it. Okay, so thank you, Emily. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much too.
And we're still on a journey. And by the way, like I said, she's actually my personal writing coach. So I don't just bring anyone on this show. I bring only the best.
Awesome. Because you are the best woman.
Oh, thank you. And from just personal experience with working with you, I can honestly say that every time we have a session, I'm like wired.
Yeah, because I'm wired too. Like this, that's what comes with living your purpose is you're able to show up 10,000%. So yeah.
The stuff is good when you come out of something like, oh yeah, they did something.
We're gonna do this.
Exactly. So it's just a matter of time, Emily. We're gonna take over.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So thank you again, Emily Tamayo Maher. If you guys want to reach her, go on, log to meaningmethodcom, also the writer's block where she has her group. I think you're also on Instagram as Emily.
Yes, I'm all over Instagram. It's a great platform for writers too.
Absolutely.
Writers, coaches, everybody. I love Instagram. Mm-hmm. And so it's Emily T. Maher.
Yes. And we're going to be taking questions now and obviously after this. So if you guys are watching this later on, feel free to ask questions and I'll forward them along to Emily and we'll get this party started.
Wonderful. Yes, I'll be all up in the comments.
Yes, thank you. So again, it is Tuesday, your Purpose with Passion interview with Emily Tamayo Maher. And she's in Colombia right away.
Absolutely.
So I love that you're in like a Latin country. All right, so it's your weekly dose of high vibe, forward thinking, and revolutionary content that encourages you to discover the passions that lead you to your purpose. So thank you, Emily, for being an example of that.
Oh, thank you. Yes. It's a wonderful time.
Absolutely. And I'll see you guys soon. And again, ask questions and I'll see you guys on Thursday. See you on the passionful side.
Ciao.